Hey, look, we've made it all the way through the series. Let's just recap what's gone on because there may be more happening than you realize. The biggest one for me is that I wanted to make sure that you could walk away from this program really having a good working understanding of how not only to use the tools, but to integrate the tools into a workflow that would allow you to storytell the way you need to storytell. We kind of culminated everything after we begin with the real basics, just where are the tools, what do they do, here's how you draw stuff, here's how you color stuff, here's what the interface looks like. And we finished it off and migrated all the way to Vexed with Vinny, where not only are we working with just creating scenes, but pretty sophisticated scenes at that. Think about everything we are accomplishing by the time we hit this series at the end. From creating characters to importing files from other programs, then overlaying special effects on them, using some of the tool sets inside of Animate to actually change the imported artwork later on, working with depth of field, working with variable line widths, how to construct a character, make cyclical animations, how to make morphing animations. I mean, wow, just a ton of stuff. And we didn't do it by just drawing on it. We went about it in a very logical, methodical way, a way that you can reuse and repeat to make sure that you've got some successful skills to create those type of animations with as little as headache as possible. When it comes to creating sketches to decide how to build characters, and more importantly, how you would reuse them later on, and then we go ahead and build the characters, doing things that are really common sense, like creating style palettes that we can reuse or reassign colors to any character that we use super easy. So if we wanted to make Vinny dirty, change the color of his suit, or darken his skin up, give him a sunburn, we could do that with just a couple mouse clicks. Really easy to do. But more importantly, this character can now be reused and imported over and over again into a broader project. So it's drawing skills, it's rigging skills, it's assembly skills, it's how you go ahead and think forward, just a ton of really useful stuff. But of course, it doesn't end there as well. There's many things we learned beyond that that have to do with other things the program does. Things like working with motion tracking so we can actually integrate video and animation created in Animation Studio Pro. And we talked about how to blend that a little bit. Working with some of the features of blurring and opacity that Anime has that allows you to more easily and more believably integrate created content to video content in a way that looks good. That's the whole point. It's a meaningful way to go ahead and use some of these things. Now, while I used video here, think about the fact that you could have a pre-existing animation and bring an animation in or something that's pulled off YouTube and track it. Some really cool stuff like that. But there's so many other things we learned too. Zombie apocalypse created with a particle generator in a 3D camera where we were using that point at camera behavior. These are things you can use day in and day out when you work with your scene to think about how to use this tool beyond just a two-dimensional tool. So in this case, we have Jai in there with the Roman Colosseum. Hey, you can import 3D objects to create really sophisticated looks and do it very easily to get some real consistent but robust abilities when you're working with the program. A thing that was really important here is, hey, I like to save time. I'm usually under deadline, so I look for ways to recycle what I've got. And here was a perfect example where we used one animation and repeated it twice, skewing it, masking it, changing it so that we could go ahead and create a cast shadow on a floor and a wall. So real practical ways to integrate things like masking and blurring, layer effects, those types of things that really have a payoff for you when you're trying to create something that looks better than just an animation that a sixth grader would put together. I really wanted you to learn how to use this tool set really well. And we learned other things. How to use some of the new capabilities like target bones to easily create walk cycles or any other types of cycles you wanted. We even had examples of where you can have all sorts of sophisticated interactions with target bones that make complex animation super easy to do. What else did we cover? Real-world practical things. From drawing in 3D, we talked about importing 3D content. We talked about point-at-camera functions for moving a camera in 3D through a scene. But there's ways you can create 2D content and build kind of a 3D scene that allows you to create really sophisticated types of animations, as in the case with the buildings, where we can do a pan and have the perspective update dynamically because, well, it's actually a 3D scene, but it looks like it's done in 2D. We also looked at different ways to rig characters, from front-on characters to imported characters with region binding to point binding to flexi binding, all these different ways to best serve you and how you're putting together characters. The bottom line is, what I'd like you to do is to just make cool things. Now, the art popping up here is not mine. It's other animators that use Anime Studio Pro. The different looks you can get with the program, the different ways you can animate with it are just absolutely fantastic. Really, anything you can imagine, pretty much, you can get done with this program. And there's no two styles that look the same. The animation you can do in Anime Studio Pro is just like a fingerprint. It's completely different. So I hope you've enjoyed the series. It's been a pleasure guiding you through this fantastic software, Anime Studio Pro.